Hey everyone, this is a special episode where we're talking about survival, we're talking about prepping, and we're talking about homesteading. I want to preface this episode by saying that there are some opinions that Marjory has that could be, anxiety provoking. And I know that we're in a really sensitive time in our history right now. And so I want to make sure that you understand that this is an episode where we talk about some very interesting topics, such as the collapse of the US dollar. We're talking about gardening and surviving on your own. So go into this with eyes wide open. Know that the opinions of Marjory and I are own opinions, and we have a very fun, colorful conversation. And I'm excited for you to hear it.
Marriott's on the move. What? Marriott's on the move. Again? Marriott's on the move.
Not anymore. I'm Mariette of Marriott's on the Move, and I'm finally setting roots back in Sweet Home Chicago. But if you're thinking about moving, I'm on it. I've moved 20 times in the last 24 years to 6 of America's top cities, and boy, do I have some stories for you. I'll be doing some on-air coaching and, of course, giving you my tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. This is the Moving Tips and Tricks podcast. Now let's get moving.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am super excited for today's guest. My name is Mariette Fry. I'm the host of the Moving Tips and Tricks podcast. And it has been something that I've thought about for a long time, is to kind of go out of suburbia, go into the wild, start a farm, and just live off the land. And when the guest reached out, her assistant reached out and said that they wanted to asked if I wanted to interview this person, I skipped all of the pre-conversations, everything. And I was like, we're diving right in. So I am very excited to welcome Marjory Wildcraft to the show. She's that neighbor that you want to have when the world goes crazy, which it feels like it's very much about to happen. She's the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. So we got lots to talk about, but she's the global advocate for homegrown food on every table. In 2009, she founded the Grow Network, which is the web's best resource for modern self-sufficiency. She has been featured by National Geographic as an expert in off-grid living. She hosted the Mother Earth News online homesteading summit. She's listed in the Who's Who in America for having inspired hundreds of thousands of backyard mini farms, which I cannot wait to talk about. I have a garden box that I bought, so I'm getting started. But Marjory's work won Reuters Food Sustainability Media Award, which is a huge deal. And she recently authored the prepping bestseller, The Grow System, The Essential Guide to Modern Self-Sufficient Living from Growing Food to Making Medicine. So she's got videos and books and thousands of videos, interviews on radio and TV, and she's helped millions of people grow their food in their backyards, which I'm hoping to do this summer. So she's got this viral webinar. We'll post it in the show notes afterwards so you can jump on and take a look. I'm signed up to take it myself. But Marjory, welcome to the show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, thank you for having me on. When I was looking at your bio, I was like, this woman has moved maybe a few more times than I have. I've had an incredibly changing life also. So
yeah, well, tell us about that. Tell us about that.
It does turn into a science after a while of like,
right?
These boxes, this organization. I guess the folks in the military are really good at that also.
Yes, but they get help. They have people that come and like help move them, but we don't. So I've always thought like I get really cocky when it comes to moving because I'm like, oh, I've done this a million times. But it's hard every single time, isn't it?
Every single time. It's the new patterning more than the actual physical move. It's like, now where are the spoons and where did I put that? And, this is how you turn the lights on. I mean, it's the little things that are disrupting of, because we're creatures of habit. We like things, and it makes life easier actually to have some healthy habits, But yeah, I've been all over the world and all over the place, and had periods of time when I was completely stable and not going anywhere, and then other times of just extreme radical travel. So at the moment, I'm actually in a rental, and that's intentional. And
okay.
We were talking a tiny bit before the show. So the US dollar is collapsing, and that's going to happen this year. And that has far, far consequences to everybody. And we can go into those consequences. But for me, strategically ahead of that, I have completely gotten out of any real estate I had. I had a lovely little farmhouse in Colorado, and I sold it. I had no stocks and bonds. The stock market is such a crazy, insane, overvalued game anyway. Not in there. And I'm not holding US dollars. I'm either in precious metals or in a very few selected crypto.
Yeah.
And just waiting for this transition to happen, which is taking longer than I thought, but I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
The market that I'm in, the real estate market is very, very volatile and everybody's wanting to sell. So they'll say, I'll lease to you for 6 months and then I'm going to sell the property. It's like I move every 6 months, which is horrible when you're a prepper. I got this stuff, and it's not like super valuable to anybody. I'm fencing, nest boxes, water systems, tools, hardware, but it's a lot.
It's cumbersome to move. I think it's valuable. I know my friend Amy, who listens to the show, she's got the Grounded in Maine podcast. She was super excited to hear about how this goes. So you may have to be on her podcast too, because she's phenomenal. But I know, like, just her moving from Maine to Virginia and starting her homestead there recently in the last year, you have to start over and you have to get all that stuff. And it's expensive. So expensive.
Yeah. I moved to Puerto Rico a couple of years ago, and it's another little level of complicated here. It's not that bad. I mean, it's still a U.S. territory, and Home Depot's in the town next door, and Amazon delivers eventually. But
eventually. So I'm planning on going to Puerto Rico this summer. I have a couple friends that live there, so I'm going to have to come visit you. Yeah.
Let's have a lunch and a coffee. Oh, that'd be so wonderful. We'll do some video together. Yeah.
I would love that. Well, so for somebody that doesn't understand what prepping means, right? Like, let's take a step back. So homesteading is one thing. Homesteading, let's talk about what homesteading is, and then let's talk about prepping, because I think that people often go into these situations like very optimistic. And I've watched Homestead Rescue, like I've watched every season of that show. And you always get these people who are like, I figured I could, learn all this stuff on YouTube and, my garden would be perfect. Yet they're sitting in the middle of like homestead that has like terrible minerals in the ground and, nothing's growing and they have no water source. And so let's talk about what homesteading is first.
Yeah, well, actually, the Grow Network, which is the community that I've built, a whole bunch of homesteaders. And honestly, if you're a homesteader, you're a prepper.
Okay.
But I think it's more of an idea of an identification. So basically, most of the behaviors that you do as a homesteader are identical as the behaviors of a prepper. And certainly most homesteaders are very, very aware of the precariousness of the world situation. Whereas I think the preppers have that maybe as it's more of an attitude of that being the forefront, the motivation. But basically we were talking about, growing your own food, starting to make your own medicine, regaining and some elements of self-reliance. And with that, of course, homesteaders are very concerned about defense. I mean, that's an issue. So all the topic, and then community is so vital. So building community and focusing on working within the community and helping neighbors. Honestly, I think it's more an attitude than a real distinction, because you're doing the same behaviors. The homesteaders are doing it because I want to choose this lifestyle, whereas the preppers are doing it because I think that I'm not going to have any choice, so I'm going to do this.
Road falling. I know, I'm somewhere in between.
Yeah. Well, we are very close. And if I might riff for a minute, my purpose for being with you today, and for everybody who's listening or watching, we are very, very, very close to this thing completely imploding. So Roy Rogers says you go bankrupt slowly and then it happens all at once. Well, we're on that edge of it happening all at once. And the consequences of that is like the banks be working anymore. You may lose all your money in those accounts. Your credit cards don't work. We've all seen the grocery stores freeze up or have food unavailable back in 2020.
No toilet paper. Yep.
No toilet paper, right? Don't get me started on that. So, and actually that has already started to happen. So, for example, the price of eggs shot up and they supposedly have gone down a little bit, but I promise you that's another sign that we're in the end game is extreme volatility, right? We're seeing it in the markets. Like one day it's up and then the next day it's down. I mean, it's really extreme volatility. We're seeing it everywhere. I hate to call them leadership, but they make this decision and then they make that decision and it's completely contradicting themselves. And we're in the end game for the US dollar. So it's almost over. And I'll tell you where we're seeing it very practically. So I do have that free webinar at I'll make a pitch, right? The backyardfoodproduction.com website. And there I show you how to grow half of your own food in your backyard. Even if you have no experience, you're older and you're out of shape. And with the prices of eggs, one of the first things I recommend people get started with is a small laying flock of hens. And with the price of eggs skyrocketing, all of a sudden everybody decided that they wanted to buy baby chicks, that they want chickens.
Yeah.
And right now, I've contacted quite a few of the major hatcheries in the United States, and there is either nothing available and never will be available, or if you're lucky, you may be able to order some now and they'll deliver in October.
Wow.
So that's that's
scary.
It's happening, right? It's happening right now. So backyard food production hasn't been a real big
push,
thing, right? Yeah. And so the market for that's kind of small. So the businesses for that are kind of small. And those businesses can easily be swamped and overtaken, which we're seeing with the baby chick market. Interesting enough, as a side note.
Yeah.
You'll see this in the webinar at backyardfoodproduction.com. I don't recommend starting with baby chicks. I'm like, because it's a different set of skills and it looks similar, but it's a different set of skills from just keeping a set of laying hens. And it takes about 6 months to take a chick to where it's producing eggs. And 6 months, it's a long time.
It's a long time.
People go out and just buy some laying hens. And I went and checked on Craigslist in Austin, Phoenix, and Philadelphia. And lo and behold, there's still laying hens available for sale.
Chicks are just cuter.
It's kind of like the toilet paper thing. Like, people are knowing they need to do something, but their focus is actually not in quite the right direction.
Right.
So you need to get started right now. This dollar collapse. I'll give you another reason. So people know me as growing food and backyard food production, gardens and chickens and all that. In my prior life to this, I was actually a professional real estate investor, and I had made my first $1 million by the time I was 40. And I still love watching the market and money flow. And so all of our banking system is completely bankrupt, to the tune of about $1 trillion. The backstop for the banking system is the Federal Reserve, and that is bankrupt to the tune of probably $1 trillion. I don't know. And the backstop to the Federal Reserve is the U.S. government, which is bankrupt to the tune of. And Elon Musk the Doge team found these 14 magic computers, which are apparently computers that it just creates money. There's no bonds created with it or anything. It's just you type into it, here's the routing number and account number. I need $100 million. And it just creates $100 million and sends it to that account. There's no accounting, no tracking, nothing. And we have no idea how many, if one of those computers existed, it's a problem. 14 of them, we have no idea how much money that they have created. But every extra $1 trillion that they create means that the value of the dollar that you have in your wallet is less and less and less. And so as the Doge team uncovers more and more and more money that's been created, the dollar is losing. The dollar's lost 99% of its value since 1913 when it was created. And now it's truly in the end days. So you need to be prepared, because the scenario for that is you can't buy anything and your dollar doesn't work. And the grocery stores and all those things are not options anymore.
So what if you already own a house? So I know you said you're renting and you've kind of taken your money out of stocks, but wouldn't you, just playing devil's advocate, wouldn't you want to have a place to stay if things are collapsing because it's your safe space? How does that work?
I would. And if I could find a property now that was really suitable, I would buy it in a minute, and I would not care the price of it. I'm really I'm like, hey, universe, send
it to me. Maybe you can come back stateside.
So yes, absolutely. Your homestead, start developing that, plant fruit trees, get the gardens going, build a chicken coop. Absolutely. Hunker down, get to know your neighbors, all the things that you do. But for whatever reason, I'm still moving around. And if I could find a property, I would. The real estate market nationwide is, Florida's leading the way. It's absolutely collapsing.
Crazy.
Texas.
Even just me finding this place. So I moved from Charlotte to Indianapolis. I was renting in Indianapolis because I was kind of doing what I call a city proof of concept, just to see if I wanted to stay there. And it turns out I didn't. So I was coming back to Chicago, where my family is, weekly. So it worked out well, because I ended up coming back here. A friend of mine had just flipped a house, and it's tiny, but it's adorable and I love it. And the kitchen's amazing. So I'm doing a ton of cooking, which in my apartment was not something that I could do. I did a lot of cooking when I was in Charlotte, but the point of my story is even just I looked and looked and looked and looked and couldn't find anything until I found something. So I feel like with you and your specific, like, you know exactly what you need, exactly what you want and everything. And that's kind of sometimes how it happens, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the way that this happened, Marjory, it was so random. My dad and his wife are considering moving a little bit further south in the suburbs of Chicago. They've got a house that they've lived in for literally, my dad's wife, Kim, has lived in this house for 75 years. Her parents built it. And then when they passed, she, bought it from the family estate, and then they've lived there ever since. But they're getting to a point like there's a basement, they want a ranch, and all of the things that they want in a different home, and they want to move it further south where they have a little bit, less to take care of. They have a huge, beautiful yard with they are master gardeners, just gorgeous, but it's a lot to take care of when you're in your, late 70s. So point of my story is they were coming to see this house just because my friend had just renovated it, to see what updates they should make on their house. And I happened to tag along, and I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my house. I have to have this house. Even though it was, it was less expensive than my house in Charlotte, because of the interest rates through the roof, 7%. My mortgage is like $800 more than it was in Charlotte. And I had a bigger, 700 square foot bigger house. So the market right now is just so crazy, and there's such little inventory that even when you do find that house, you almost have to jump on it right away. Otherwise it's gone.
It's an interesting market. Yeah. Here it's the other way. We have a huge amount of inventory. Sellers are cutting their prices. But I live in it's like a tourist town, a Rincon, which is famous for surfing, and areas that and it was hugely inflated by Airbnb. The Airbnb market is absolutely collapsing. So tourist towns tend to be falling flat now because people, they bought that second home, they airburied it out, they were making a ton of money, plus they had a place for themselves and a beautiful location they liked. Well, that formula no longer works. So
right now everybody's doing it.
Now there's a ton of do a long-term rental. So there's now the flood of long-term rentals, and people dumping the properties, and that's part of why Florida's tanking, and then parts of Texas. And so here, that's the situation, is the market is dropping pretty dramatically. I do believe the market will be dropping uniformly across the United States. I mean, every market's going to be.
Yeah, it's got to right size at some point. Well, and you're in Puerto Rico, so island living is a little bit different. I've not had anybody on the show from Puerto Rico. So as far as that, I mean, it is a U.S. territory, right? Yep. What does that actually mean in the grand scheme of things? Are you guys voting? What's that all about?
The last thing I could care about is voting. I mean, really, to me, politics is like a soap opera that people don't realize they're involved in a soap opera. If you watch a soap opera, it's fiction. You watch politics and people actually believe it. It's fiction. Yeah, that's my opinion on politics. It's fundamentally, you can fly here on your state ID. I mean, it's not, you don't need a passport or anything. It is a U.S. territory.
And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. If you want to be right on the beach in a particular neighborhood, it's going to be $1 million. But by and large, I find a lot of it is actually fairly cost effective. So you can still find properties here. And then, as I said, Home Depot's here, and some of the things that if you feel like you need those things, they're here and available. The U.S. Post Office delivers here. But then again, it's kind of like its own little Latin American country in some ways. So Spanish is the dominant language. You can get fine with English, but it is the dominant language and the legal language. And there is definitely the Latino culture, which I love.
I love it too.
They're way noisier than Americans are on the mainland, way noisier. It's fun. I love it. And people go, oh, the hurricanes. I love it. We just had the island-wide blackout for 2 days here. Actually, what it was, they said it'll either be 24, 48 hours or 2 weeks, whichever's longer.
Oh my gosh. Well, for you as a survivalist, that's here's the Super Bowl. It's game on. Let's do this.
Totally. I mean, I'm living in an off-grid house right now, and I didn't even know. Somebody had to text me and say, hey, don't go to the gym because the gym's going to be closed. But I love it because I think there is more solar panels per square foot on this island than anywhere. And because the infrastructure is so poor, everybody has at least 100-gallon thing of water somewhere, and people know about hurricane season, so they prepare. I mean, preparedness is a part of the lifestyle, especially out, San Juan's a big city, and those people are city people, and they got their own particular version of ignorance. But the people out in the countryside, we know, and generally there's a high level of preparedness and an appreciation for somebody who's doing preparedness. So I love it. And it is a little rough. It's a bit slow. Like, okay, you're coming on Thursday. Which Thursday? Is it next week or is it next?
Right.
Okay. Are you coming in the morning or the evening? I mean, there's no, there's the things are a little slippy slidey like that. But
yeah,
honestly, I used to be a type A personality and still have some of that, but it's been good for me to okay.
Yeah, slow down. I heard too that from a tax perspective, it's like a flat 4%. And that's why a lot of people go there because you save a lot of money tax wise, but I don't know if that's the whole reason. I mean, there's obviously other probably sunshine taxes that you end up having to pay, like Florida.
They do have some incentive programs for people to move here. And I honestly think it's a good idea because this poor little island definitely needs some investment and some attention and some love. I mean, you do need to, if you have an online business, it's a really good thing. Definitely look into it. For me, I didn't end up I got into that program initially and I didn't end up really making enough money to have it really be worthwhile.
Which program is that?
It's called the Act 60 program. And you come in and you can sign up for it. And you do have some other obligations. Like you do need to contribute about $10,000 to charity every year, which I am really applaud and do anyway. And there are some other things, and there are people that moved here specifically for that. I moved here because I love chocolate. I really love chocolate. And it grows here. Chocolate grows on trees. And I'm like, if I'm going through the apocalypse, I'm
like heaven.
I want to have chocolate. And for some people, it's coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but for some people, it's coffee. I also have always wanted to learn Spanish. So I love it that I'm more engaged in that. And salsa dancing. Fun. I used to live in Texas and you're like, would you please dance with me if you go two-stepping, right? Here, men are very proud. They dance and they dance beautifully. And it's like, it's a part of their machismo that they can spin a woman around. And I love it, So,
I love that.
So for me,
being single, I need to come down to Puerto Rico sooner.
I just did this whole 6-week thing of salsa. That was so wonderful. It's just so fun. So I came here really for the lifestyle.
Yeah.
There are people who come here and just hate it. So like you were just talking about, you moved, to Illinois and you wanted to check it out. I really recommend you do that. Come and check it out, rent an Airbnb for a month or 2 months or whatever. And check it out because it is different, but I love it. I'm having a great time. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to talk about beginning gardening because I wore my bee stuff just for you today because I used to, like when the whole Save the Bees thing came about, I was like the first in my last home in Charlotte, my whole wallpaper was honeycomb with little bees on it. So I'm a big fan of the bees. I don't know that I could ever, I think I could have I could be a beekeeper because I'm not afraid of them. I love them. I have a friend that's in North Carolina who they're legit beekeepers. Their homestead is many, many, many acres. But so I know I have a garden box that I just bought. I haven't even put it together yet. My neighbor, Mary next door, her and I are both have decided we're going to grow food this summer. She's got a couple raised bed garden boxes that her and her son put together. I haven't gotten that far yet because I'm doing some landscaping in my backyard and putting a patio in. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like just yet. But if somebody were like me, I picked up a book, I'm taking your webinar, what are the basics that I need to know? I know I need sun for 6 hours at least a day in the back. What are the basics that are easy step-ins for somebody that just bought a house or just moved into a new place and wants to garden?
Yeah, that's perfect. I really, really recommend what you're talking about of a raised bed garden. And honestly, I like to build them out of cinder blocks for a couple of reasons. One is a cinder block mostly weighs about 16 pounds, which is something that a woman or a small child can carry. So you can build them and you don't need to glue them in place or anything. And I like to build them 2 cinder blocks high.
Okay.
And part of the reason why is then you can sit on the edge of it and lean in. And so it's very good for people who have maybe a bad back or they can't squat or they have bad knees. The other thing I'd really recommend is fill it with the highest quality soil that you can get. Okay. The secret to a green thumb, someday I'm going to have some green guy on my thumb when I do these shows. The secret to a green thumb is really, really good soil. Okay. So your plants get their nutrients and they get their vitality, not only from the sunlight and from rain, but also from what's in the soil. And
how do you know if it's good soil? What makes it good soil?
Oh,
That's
good.
how beginning I am.
Yeah. Yes. Well, when you pick it up, it should have that really good, rich, earthy smell.
Okay.
And I would really recommend going to like a local regional nursery that actually makes soil for you. They compost stuff and make soil. And I want to give you one huge caveat. And that is, so when you've been in Charlotte or Chicago, you probably never thought about this, but what happens when you flush the toilet? It goes to the municipal processing center. They divide the liquid part out from the solid part, and they lightly compost the biosolids. They call it biosolids, and it magically turns into organic compost, which it's an absolute lie. It contains forever chemicals. It contains pharmaceuticals. It contains glyphosate. It contains everything that people have been flushing down the toilet.
Oh my God.
And it's listed often as organic because technically it's an organic material as it's organic. And they bag it up into 40 quart bags, sell it to you individually. They load it onto big trucks and they sell it to farmers. So you absolutely want to stay away from that. If you open the bag and it has a really chemically off smell, actually sometimes they screw it up and it actually does smell like human feces, which is kind of rare, but it's awful.
Gross.
That soil and things do grow really well in it, I will say, but you're also getting all kinds of stuff you really don't want, and you're defeating the purpose of growing your own food. So really sort out really the local, regional people who manufacture soil and compost things. Those are going to be your best bet, and ask them, does this have any biosolids in? Or if they're adding compost, where did that compost come from? Because really, I've read the 40 quart bags here. It's called Majestic Soil. 4-inch letters. It says organic gardening soil. And I've read every letter on the bag, and it just said, organic compost. And so when I called them up and I said, where did the compost come? They said, it comes from Caribbean Composting Company. And I said, oh no, that's the company that processes all this from San Juan, Yeah, but really good soil is important. A side note we don't need to get into here, but if anybody wants to follow up with me, forever chemicals are supposed to be forever. And I ran it, and people have said to me, Marjory, I want to grow my own food, but we've got, chemtrails, we've got agricultural drift, we got all kinds of this contamination. And I ran into some guys who have an all-natural mineral and microbe product that they said would destroy forever chemicals. And the first thing I'm like, you guys. Adorable. They're going to get the white jacket out for you pretty soon. But we were involved in a project, and I kept running into them. And then finally I said, okay, I really do need a switch. So I built a couple of raised beds and contaminated soil in both. One I treated and one I didn't. And I sent in the results to a certified lab, Pace Analytical Labs, largest lab in the United States. And lo and behold, it destroyed forever chemicals.
Wow.
And, I know it's huge. This is huge. Some of the microbes that are in that kit also are known to destroy glyphosate. And I'm just about to send in the results for that test. These guys also say it'll remediate heavy metals, and I'm still trying to find a lab that I can work with and design a test to verify that. But it's a total game changer.
What's it called?
We call it the Minerals and Microbes Soil Detox Kit. So I'll get you a link for that. It's really easy to apply. If you have a 1/4 acre yard, you would get 20 applications, which would be more than enough. It also includes 90 minerals, so it would be more than enough to completely detoxify yard and then remineralize it, which is super important. So it's a kit I'm just so excited about having recently developed. So the raised bed gardens are great. And to start out, what I'd really recommend with is start small. And a single person, 2 50 square foot beds is great. So your bed is like 4 or 5 feet wide by like 10 or 12 feet long. 2 of those. And that's really all one person really, really needs. It's amazing. Don't go crazy with a huge amount of land, and put the soil in those raised beds. And that way, this is my special high quality growing food soil. So you treat it differently than just, whatever the random ground is. And I go in more depth in that at the webinar at Backyard Food Production. And then here's a little bit of a shocker is I actually don't recommend people do gardens first.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Well, if the timing is perfect, which in a lot of places in the United States, it's perfect right now. But really, most of the time during the year, even in the winter or the summer or whatever, it's not perfect for putting a garden in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a backyard flock of laying hens is so much more productive.
Yeah.
So I really recommend 6 laying hens. It's a good amount to start with. A laying hen will lay on average about 250 eggs a year. They take a little time. Yeah, well, they take a little time off if it gets too hot, too cold. There's a thing called molting where they lose their feathers and they got to change things out. But 250 eggs. So if you have 6 hens, 250 eggs, that's 1,500 eggs a year.
Wow.
And that means you have 3 egg omelets for breakfast and 33 dozen eggs to give away or trade or eat in other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. Like having breakfast.
I don't know if my village allows them in my backyard though. I would have to look at that, but that sounds amazing because I just paid $7 for a dozen organic eggs. And a friend of mine is a naturopath. And so she has a farm that she works with and she's getting me on the list they have such a long wait list for healthy organic food, which, is good music to my ears. Like I am in remission for celiac and Crohn's. And I've had every doctor in the world tell me that you can't heal that. Like, just keep taking the medicine. I had a doctor tell me once that he literally said, because I was losing my hair. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's. I hospitalized for 5 days. Just my body. I knew that I had celiac. I was diagnosed with that in college, but I never really did anything about it because we didn't know. There wasn't a ton of information about it. And fast forward a couple years out of college, I moved to San Francisco and I thought I was going to die. I literally I couldn't even stand. My whole body just shut down. They put me in the hospital. It took them 3 days to figure out what was wrong with me. And when they finally did, they said I had Crohn's. And so they put me on this non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. I'm taking this for, a couple months. And all of a sudden, my hair's falling out in clumps, like I had cancer and I was going through chemo or something. And I was like I went to my gastro, who is a world-renowned gastroenterologist. And I said, help me understand, from what I'm reading, it's all what's sitting in my guts. And can I put in at the time, microbiome and words like that weren't really top of mind for people. I was reading medical journals and I said, from what I'm seeing in the naturopath world, I should be able to eat good food and heal through food. And he said, put your big girl skirt on and take the effing pills. And I go, challenge accepted. And I said, I'll see you in 3 months. And so I didn't take a single pill. I went on this anti-inflammatory, vengeful diet. And my hair grew back beautifully, nice and thick. And, my skin was glowing. Everything was amazing. And I wasn't sick anymore. I wasn't, I didn't have any type of IBS symptoms. I didn't have any type of nothing. And I did this for almost a year. But when I went back 6 months later, because I skipped my 3-month appointment, he said, see, the pills work. And I said, I haven't taken a single pill. And I specifically came here to tell you that. I said, all my hair has grown back. No thanks to you. And I said, this is how I'm healing it. And I found another gastroenterologist who had more naturopathic type holistic views. And I did a colonoscopy every year for 8 years, because that's what you have to do when you have Crohn's to be Crohn's free and in remission. And I'm happy to say that in the last several colonoscopies that I've gotten, there is no traces of celiac at all and no traces of Crohn's. And this is something that I dealt with for a long, long time, but I healed through food. And I feel like people don't take that seriously enough. And then they keep eating processed food. And I could see every once in a while having a cookie or something like that, where last night I had pizza from my absolute favorite pizza place, but I had dairy and, wheat, gluten, all that stuff. And I feel fine today. But
wow. And now you want to grow your own food because you realize, yeah. And
but it's
growing your own food will take it to the whole next level.
Yeah. I eat organic when I almost always. That's always my. I don't care. What is it? The Dirty Dozen and things like that. That you can look up and see kind of what it is. But growing your own food has been so incredibly interesting to me. I just haven't lived in a place recently that I could do that. So now that I get to do that. What would you say? I love kale. I have kale at almost every meal, collard greens. I love collard greens. What are some of the easier things to grow that grow fast that I can get my hands wet or my feet wet on? Wet, my hands dirty on?
Well, first of all, yeah, let's think about just the logistics of a plant. So leafy greens, the easiest and quickest to grow. In fact, sprouts are even the quickest. Like you just
I love
seeds and
sprouts.
sprout, right? I know, I love them too. Not a lot of calories in there, but a huge amount of nutrition and life force, which is very important, especially for people who
Isn't
are healing.
magnesium too? I feel like they have mag.
Well, I know the broccoli sprouts have a lot of sulfur, which has apparently been really good shown to mitigate if you have had PFAS exposure. Where there was a big thing going on around that with back when the Ohio train wreck happened in Palestine, Ohio. But the leafy greens, so for the plant, all it has to do is make leaves, and that's pretty quick, right? And you can get leafy greens up and going, and kale, spinach, bok choy, all of the great classics. And you can even eat your broccoli leaves, by the way. You don't have to necessarily eat the floret. But all they have to do is make the leaves. So it's very quick and simple. Now, something like a tomato or a cucumber or a squash, the plant needs to make the plant, right? All of its leaves, and then it gathers the energy to actually make the fruit. So it's going to take a little longer. It definitely wants more sunlight, but that's because it's producing a fruit, right? So those are going to be take a little longer, be a little more challenging, but we're still not talking about a couple of months. So it's not hard. And of course, if you plant a tree, that's actually wonderful. And your retirement account, don't forget about Social Security, is planting some fruit and nut trees. They take a lot of work up front. You plant them, you take care of them for a few years, and most of them don't really start producing for 5 years or so, some 10. But then it's so much easier because then you've just got harvesting to do, right? A little pruning. Yeah. So we call it a food forest with these perennials is your retirement account, basically. Yeah. But to go back to the chickens, I really, really recommend that because it's just so fast. Like at the webinar at backyardfoodproduction.com, I show you an example of what the chicken coops look like. If you have a modicum of carpentry experience, you can build one in just a couple of weekends. And if you don't, you can hire someone. There's things you can put together.
Sells them. Yeah.
yeah. There's all kinds of places you can get a chicken coop and a little run. Yeah. You can get set up in a very short period of time, buy some feed, get the water, go on Craigslist, get some laying hens. And after the hens have settled into their new environment, after a couple of days, you're producing eggs in your backyard. Like a few weeks.
Isn't there waste too, like good for the compost for your soil?
Absolutely. That's the other real key of why you want to have livestock. In fact, the city of Austin, I guess this is like 30 years ago, if you had chickens in your backyard, you were considered Bubba and lowered the property values and everything like that. Right? It was horrible. And then there was a bunch of us, I wasn't the forefront on this, but I was involved, where we really turned that conversation around to the point now where the city of Austin has classes and subsidizes backyard chickens.
And kidding.
The reason why is they have found that chicken owners have 30% less waste that goes into the landfills because they're feeding their chickens their scraps and their other stuff. So they have less waste. And so the landfill usage is a big problem for a municipality. So they will subsidize you getting a coop. They have classes on how to take care of chickens. But then that nutrient cycling, which is what you want to do in your yard with the chickens, is, it's another step towards self-reliance of having your own compost and your own fertility going on there. And you compost what the birds are doing.
So I also have begun juicing again. I don't know, like I go through these phases where I juice a ton and then I don't juice at all for like a year. But I'm in that phase where I love juicing. And I don't know if that type of compost, that kind of like the pulp from all that stuff, is that good for composting?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Okay. By the way, your own homemade compost is going to be far better than anything you can buy commercially. And it's because... So you should think of soil as the gut microbiome for the plants. Okay. And in your gut microbiome, the more diversity you have, the better able you're going to be to digest all kinds of stuff, and the better your immune system is going to be. And compost, the big commercial composters, they usually only have a few ingredients that are going into that compost. Maybe it's municipal wood chips, and maybe it's old candy bars and bread from some candy factory. Right. No, I'm serious. That's
really?
Yeah. Like, man, a friend of mine this is years ago, and he had a big composting company, and the Mars candy bar company said, "Hey, look, can we send you a semi truck full of these candies that aren't?" No. And he did. But the thing is, it has so much sugar in it. Like the problem with large scale composting is if it gets too hot, it bursts into flame.
No way.
So he had this huge composting thing. It was on fire. He had to have the fire department out there.
Holy cow.
Anyway, but to go back to your compost pile, I don't think you're going to need to worry about that.
Okay.
But the more you're able to put a huge, you've got that banana peel, or maybe the leftover stump from that broccoli, or you've torn up, that paper bag, you just tore that up and put it in there, or a bit of the chicken manure, or, just leftover scraps of this and that, some leaves.
Yeah.
Well, you've got this real diversity of ingredients in there, and it engenders a diversity of microorganisms in the compost. And that gives diversity to your soil, which helps really strengthen your plants. So your compost at home is going to be far, far better than commercial compost. And often we all need to buy some commercial compost to get started. But you definitely want to be composting at home in more than one way. You want to have a couple of compost piles.
I'm excited about this. So Mary, my neighbor, and I share an easement, and all of these volunteer trees had grown through my fence, and they're just kind of getting in the way. They don't even bloom, I guess. So we had a landscaper who does both of our lawns come and cut them down, but we asked him to keep the branches and the twigs. And so he was kind enough to wrap them all, bunch them together for us. So we both are sharing all of this, and that's going to be the ground level. I just moved, so I have a bunch of cardboard and boxes, and I've been saving my egg cartons because they're all compostable. So I'm literally going to be building this little thing just to try it so I can go bigger next summer or even, later. My screened-in patio, we're putting windows in it. So it's almost going to act like a greenhouse this winter, which I'm even more excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I'm that'll be a good heat source for me, but I can also potentially grow through the year to see if I can keep it up. So there's so many things that I've just recently, when your assistant reached out to me to see if this would be a good fit, I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. So thank you for answering.
It's so wonderful. Just the journey you're on. It's so empowering because you start to look around and think and go, what can I do here? And the world Earth really is very, very abundant when you start to tap into it. And there's so much in our lives we really don't need. And I always love the challenge of the creativity of okay, this is happening. What do I need to do? How can I reconfigure this? Or what is this shape for? This might be a strange piece of metal. And, it had some other function, but you're looking at it and you're that could really work over here. There's this wonderful thing. I'll tell you a really funny story. And so there's a lot of people in apartments, condominiums, small stuff, often ask me. And of course, I talk about sprouts and herbs and, the things you can do. But I also say, look, if you really hold a question in your mind and you want it answered, the universe, you can use whatever religion you have, you can use that, God or Yahweh or whatever. I use universe. The universe wants to support you and help you. And so you just say, look, I've got this question, and so for a while I got questioned so much about what can I do if I live in a small space? Yeah. And I was like, what are things that people can do? So the universe will answer you, but you have to be very open-minded and open-hearted to receive that answer. And so for me, one of the answers came in the form of my son, teenage son, who was growing psilocybin in his closet, right? And so we deal with that as parents. But then after I'm done with it, I'm like, you can grow mushrooms in a closet.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, for those that don't,
you can grow mushrooms. If you live in an apartment or condominium, you can grow mushrooms.
Yeah.
But like I said, the answer will come to you sometimes. Maybe not it's definitely not going to be in a way you expect. Right?
As a mom, you're like, okay, let's talk through this. So, resourceful. Love it.
Love it. Yeah. He's a good little businessman. We had to we got to deal with that. But
people are microdosing these days. It is an amazing. I have a friend of mine runs a veteran organization that he was a Navy SEAL. He went through tremendous amounts of PTSD. He had several tours through different war-torn lands. And he came back a whole different person. And his wife basically said, if we don't do something about this, you're either going to take your life or I'm going to. So let's figure this out. And he ended up going to, I think, somewhere in Mexico and went through a ton of microdosing through the course of a couple of weeks. And now his whole organization, he's a completely changed man. And it's because of some holistic, all natural thing that, we in the States are not willing to even experiment on, given how amazing their results are. So I'm all in with you on this holistic, all natural, like this has to be the way we go. Otherwise people are going to get sicker and die sooner.
Well,
and
your own story. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, what are you in your 20s and 30s? You should not be having Crohn's disease.
48. Thank you.
48. Well, you still shouldn't be having, I mean, people are having Crohn's disease. They're having
Right.
heart disease. They're having cancer. Kids that are 20s and 30s, this is absolutely, it's because the food supply is devoid of nutrients and it's loaded with toxins. It's very, very simple. I may possibly be doing something with the MAHA organization. We've kind of been talking. I'm not sure because that political stuff does not interest me at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, look, guys, MAHA, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for illness. But at the physical level, it's too much toxicity and no nutrition. And that can be corrected with homegrown food very simply. And I often say the process of growing food is more health beneficial than the actual production.
Yeah. Just mentally, it's like a good exercise and taking care of yourself and supporting yourself,
Going outside, getting a little bit of sunlight, some fresh air, engaging with plants and animals. Your electronics and water and soil don't mix, so you're going to get away from that, which will be good for you. It's just a really incredibly beneficial activity overall. And at this point, it's been essential actually for a long time. People haven't realized it. And now that so many people are getting sick, it's like, oh, yeah, like you. I love that you had that.
That was years ago. And I'm so grateful that for the last 20 years, I had this conversation with so many people. Like I have someone I know that I used to work with that literally was getting like blood transfusions for Crohn's. And I said, here's what worked for me. Like, just try it. What could it hurt? 30 to for him, it was 60 days. I said, for the next 60 days, take all of these inflammatory foods out of your diet. Right? Wouldn't you want to get those 3 hours back a week that you go for blood transfusions? And he's like, yeah. And he did. And slowly but surely was weaning himself off medications, doesn't have to get blood I mean, people don't realize the food that you eat directly impacts your command center, which is your gut, and if we keep hurting our guts, it's going to keep hurting our brains and we're going to have more and more mental disease and breakdown. So I love what you're doing. I love that you're teaching people how to do this. I'm so grateful that you chose to come on my show. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I think you're doing big things. I hope everybody goes to see your webinar. It's backyardfoodproduction.com. How can people find you otherwise?
Yeah, well, once you get on there, we'll start getting you involved in the newsletter. I post almost daily on Substack, do, and that's another way. Even if you're in an apartment, a condominium, or you're not in a situation yet, I really recommend you just go to Substack. I post a lot of 5 to 15 minute videos that teach you something, and that way you can start learning it and start getting familiar with it without even doing it yet.
Yeah.
And here, hey, I use this old school bus as a storage technique for all my prepper stuff, or hey, here's how you can regrow scallions, or hey, here's how I'm doing container composting. So that way you can really just start
firsthand
seeing it happen, even if you're not doing it yet. That way you have some familiarity with it. And so backyardfoodproduction.com, but then I think it's Marjory Wildcraft Substack, however, but that's I'm doing a lot there. I really fell in love with Substack. It's got a great community there.
I haven't even heard of it, but I'm going to actually go and find it right now and make sure I sign up. So you can be my virtual neighbor from Puerto Rico.
There you go. Yeah.
And then I'll come visit you this summer.
Oh, yeah. Definitely reach out. By the way, so at Substack, I read all of the comments and I'm doing my best to respond to all of them. So if you want to reach out to me there, that's a real great way to get to me directly. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Marjory. Loved this conversation. I will post all of the information in the show notes so everybody can get that. But thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a wrap on today's tips and tricks. Jump on decidingtomove.com to apply for a free on-air coaching session or join the newsletter to get your copy of the Moving for Smarties workbook. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or real estate agent. I do not own a moving company or work for the governing agencies transporting home goods, which means Marriott's on the Move LLC is not responsible for anything that happens during your move. This is solely my perspective based on my research and my own experience and training. So, move at your own risk. Bye for now.